Tonight we have Pete Steglitz of Steglitz Power telling us everything we want to know about home charger installation. And here is Pete.
Start out with questions, or do we have a general platform you want me to go through and then have some questions out?
On the email, so you do the installation for home charging?
Correct.
Oh, okay, so that's what you're going to talk about. Or
So
that's part of it?
basically here we have some do's and don'ts. We have a unboxing we can do between the lot, we talked about Hubble, NEMA 1450 and 30 variations. There's also the minimal or the least 15 amp all the way up to, the wall connector, a failed wall connector from a loose terminal that I had, different sizes of wire, etc. So this is actually one of the real big things that sold me on Tesla, how robust their actual build quality and plastic, and that was a good experience pulling this thing off. And we also have a burned up panel. That wasn't over its load calculation, it was just the circuits were grouped in a way where it burned up the bustle. So a few different things we can talk about. But yeah, I would recommend if you already have something you can use that. Try to not put in extra infrastructure you don't need. Live with what you have, and then obviously make sure everything's safe and it's rated. But then work up as you go, because we have the Inflation Reduction Act, and you're going to get more bang for your buck in the future. So that's kind of what I suggest. And as a Tesla guy, have a Model S. I know through the updates that their charging speed does get faster. So that's one thing that it kind of is enjoyable. It doesn't get faster overnight, but I started, it was like 2 miles of range per hour, and now it's 6 on the lowest. I believe it's a 15 amp. So that's a basic platform, but anybody else have a spin-off question or just kind of go through a home walkthrough?
I've got a Tesla 3. I've had it 4 years. My problem is I live in a condo complex, and when I initially looked to get the charger connected up, it was around $4,000 to do the work, and that's not with an inspection costs, etc. And since I just used the superchargers around town, I went $4,000 or $5,000 to just for the convenience of charging at home. It's just not worth it. But there's a couple of us in the building that have either totally electric or hybrids, and trying to figure out how to find somebody that could come and advise us on what to do, and possibly become the vendor that we recommend to other owners in the building.
I would be happy to walk through any job that you have. That's part of what I do. It's part of kind of where I've come to this conclusion of, hey, you have something here, maybe you can adopt this, and then by the time you decide what you really want, you kind of save your money at that point. A lot of the condos aren't set up for stuff like that. There are some products, smart switches, smart panels, DCC9s, which was an absolutely great experience. We have a fellow Tesla shareholder and club member here that's been through the ups and downs, and that was one of the first that adopted DCC9. I had the pleasure to install that, and it's a process to be an early adopter. We're still an early adopter. We still don't have the nozzles, the gas nozzles to fill the cars yet. So it's just looking at this, it's very early. And if anybody wants to crash test this nozzle in the parking lot to see how robust they are, it's been smashed a few times, and that's kind of why I kept it around. But yeah, I'd be happy to help you and look at your property. It's all down to load calculation
Right.
and how you manipulate the load calculation with the products that are out there, whether they be smart switches or time of use devices, things like that.
Yeah, I'd love to get your info, so. that
Absolutely. After
hopefully-
we're done, we'll put it online. I mean, it's on my shirt. If you want to screenshot my shirt, it's all about that. So, yeah.
Oh, I can do that.
You know, big shout out to Jay Garcia. He was an old battery guy that started making sense of this a long time ago. Obi Hardware and Homas and Hodads that, you know, helped us find our way. So yeah, there's a lot of great businesses, and I thank you for supporting the ones that are around. So yeah, I'll be happy to have any conversation.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And I'll be happy to share my experience with the installation that Peter has done at my condo.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you.
Is that here in San Diego or where?
And Pacific Beach. Yeah.
So I have a question. Should take questions.
Absolutely. It's open. If anybody just wants to shout out, interrupt, point stuff out, please come up and look at stuff.
2011 Blink, it's still working. They had some glitches initially. They updated and did some upgrades. It's still working. What I like about it is it tells me how long it's been on and some basic information. Is there any new units you would recommend that also tell you how long they've been plugged in, or you can that you can change the what do you call it, the amperage or the voltage?
There are, if you have a vehicle, I would go with their proprietary charger. Things in the code, I brought variations of how the code's grown to adopt this. If you want to dig into the dirty, I'm not going to do that on film, but you can actually bust out this is the newest code section. And it's actually marked out, should be marked out in code 600, which is the ED code. So you can kind of get a grip on what we do and how we process, and that's like our Bible. And it's grown over the years. I would stick with the proprietary charger, whether it's Ford or Tesla. We're starting to grow out of the NEMA 1450 and 1030s. This was a failed NEMA 1450. You can see it failed. This is a light fail. You can see some heat. And I believe it was this terminal that failed. Take a look
Is
at
it
that.
because they didn't tighten it tightly, or?
I believe that's what happened to this. That is a loose connection. Right there is a telltale sign of not being torqued down correctly. And that is also a wonderful experience with a failed product. It didn't go anywhere. Stayed right there. This is all me ripping it off. But it was, that was one of the things that really sold me. I was, Tether doing their products for a while and installing the things, and they didn't break, and I was very impressed. But when it came down to this, it was a very impressive thing.
I was going to follow up on what Larry said. I also have the 2011 Blink Charger with the Nissan Leaf. When they first came out, they were giving those to people.
Yeah.
And I use an adapter and I charge it. We have two Teslas and charge them both, no problems. The only issue is if you have an issue with that, like I did, I lost connectivity many years ago, and the company no longer supports them. They're considered obsolete, and they won't give you any support on them. But it still works fine in terms of charging. There's no issue there.
And I'm not jamming you up on that point.
Yeah.
I've seen products come and go, and I've loved products that have come and go. And what I've seen stick is the products that are backed by the company that has them. Like Tesla wall connectors are going to be there as long as Tesla was there.
Hello. Sorry, this is the phone. Sorry to interrupt. Is there a way to get into the meeting here in front of the museum, or is that closed off now? Two of us are late and we're standing outside, if that's still possible.
Someone will come and escort you in. Yes.
Oh, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Door should be open.
No, they closed the doors.
Main door. Sorry about that. I'm doing a little
No,
bit.
they're definitely closed with like metal bars are already on the windows.
When they're done,
Does everybody here understand the various charge standards and the various wall connectors and things that people may be using to connect a vehicle charger? Or is that something that would be a nice basis for a deeper discussion?
I think that'd be a good idea to go through this, because there's a lot of people that are online and here that they probably don't know that.
Okay.
Didn't you guys have a slide for that?
We'll get into, if you want to get into the slides after this, when these people come back in, sure, we can change gears into that.
Yeah,
As far as the leaf, it gets in the rating, and that gets into, the manufacturer, and a lot of fail is due to torque settings. I would say if it's running, just like I recommended there, it's great. I have a thermal image camera. We can plug it in, we can run it, we can take an actual temperature recording of what's going on to give you a peace of mind. That's something that I do to just kind of give a peace of mind to just something like this. This poor guy plugged in anyway, long story with that, but the chargers that are rated, even the ones that aren't for the manufactured vehicles, great. We're still early. Get what you can, get what you like. If you have a product that works for you and it's rated, yes, I would go for it. I would highly recommend the products that are manufacturer based, just because they stand behind the manufacturers, you know.
Okay, along the same lines on this, my brother and his wife, they both have Teslas. They've got a Tesla wall connector. He wants to switch to a Rivian. And he's wondering, is there an adapter available so that you use a Tesla wall connector and charge up a Rivian?
They should have one through Rivian and they should have one through Tesla, but I know Tesla has one. I'm not sure if Rivian's gone that far yet, but I know that Tesla, it is not proprietary to the Rivian, but I think it's like charging whatever that charging.
What does the
channel
Rivian take?
is.
I'm not sure what it is. Is
it's
it
in the
177J72 or?
Yeah, you can Google it, it's online. It
Okay.
exists. Yeah, I believe the CCS is Tesla to CCS.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? They have all of them out now. It's just, you know, do your homework on the one that you really want, because one of them is like a big old trunk, and they get, like I say, as time goes on, they get better as the market kind of refines what's going on.
But the supercharger network, that's a different story there. You're not going to be able to use.
You're not gonna touch that. Nobody's touching that for years. That thing, I mean, as an electrician, I've seen what it takes to push things through municipalities. I've seen what it takes, the manpower, and like you say, just the accuracy of getting things right. And Tesla has killed it on that. It can pull up to any one, they're working, it tells you how many are working, you know, it's just great. I can't really speak to the other ones since I haven't charged there, because I haven't needed to. It's been that, it's been that good, but
I think his question was whether the Rivian could charge at the Tesla supercharger, which is obviously not available yet.
No,
I think that's what you're.
Well, yeah, well, there's two. Well, there's first of all is charging at home using a Tesla wall connector.
yes.
The second issue, which I think we've already determined you can't do it, is using the Tesla supercharger. No, you can't do that.
There
But
are
the wall
Tesla
connectors, yeah.
superchargers that are open, and they're opening them, but they're not widespread. I think maybe there's one on the way to Vegas just to see how it goes, but they're not open to, there are a few in Europe that are open to doing that, but, and it's gonna come.
Yeah.
When they release the money, that's one of their moats, is the supercharger network is so good, they can open, you know, 3 or 4 stalls. They don't have to open the whole charging bay. They can just say, hey, man, this thing's getting too full of Rivians, so we're just gonna, you know, in real time, limit it to only 50% or 60%, so they can make it so it never fills up. So this whole like, oh my God, they're gonna flood the charger thing, no, not gonna happen.
Yeah.
They crushed it with that.
One question, and this might apply a little bit more to like commercial vehicles, but I'm really curious about like electric semis and all that.
Love it.
But even with like the Tesla supercharger network, they're gonna have faster chargers, right? And they might want to deploy faster chargers. Like, how do you think that they may tackle that? Like, have they like built in a lot of extra capacity or something so that that's easy to do?
They don't talk about their future.
Yeah.
But if you look at the footprint and what they've done in the past and how they expanded the charges that are already there, it's worked out so good for where they put the chargers that people want more of the chargers there. So they'll open stuff up across the street or they'll expand what's there. And it's like, I believe, they upgrade, they're upgrading the 1 megawatt, but you'll watch them as the Tesla rolls out and the Cybertruck upgrade, and that's where it's really gonna break the supercharger network apart. Because the newest vehicles will have the 1 megawatt or whatever it is, and you'll be able to charge them just as fast as a gas car, and then they'll flip over the older units to, Rivians, and, they'll make all this happen, and they'll keep their product, above what's going on, but then they can open up the slower moat to the rest of the cars that need it anyway, which is perfectly fine. I'm ecstatic with the charging network now. I can't imagine, I have a Cybertruck on order, I can't imagine what it will be like to plug in and just be like, hey, this is great. We'll see. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
So getting back to home charging, a couple of months ago, there was a bit of a buzz about some failures that people were having with the secondary, not the proprietary home charging charge points, but the like the Clipper Creeks and others, especially some that may have been DIY, failing, causing fires in your panel, other things like for instance, when I installed my Clipper Creek, I do not recall seeing anything about torque values in the instructions. I did have a certified electrician come and check my work, and never had any trouble with it. But after those videos started coming out about, do you know what I'm talking about? 2 or 3 months ago. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we wanted to get you in here, in case there were any people like myself who might have done DIY installs of charge points.
There is, what I would recommend is, it's called a fat wrench. There are many different tools out there, but this is the one I'm currently using. It's a handheld manual torque wrench, and to save fires, I'm not, I'll help anybody and have conversations with any of your installs. But if you're gonna go there, tight is a different tight. My tight's different than her tight. Tomorrow's tight is different. My wrist may hurt. So even if you think you give it your all, you can over tighten. Stick with the tools and stick with the torque rating. If they don't have a torque rating, it's not rated and it's not worth anything. Wear your glasses, wear your gloves, have the power off. Those are the real basic things to get taken care of. Obviously, don't mess with this stuff if you're not comfortable. Don't mess with it if you are comfortable. Know what you're doing. And I can't recommend DIY for countless different things, but it is America and people have their rights, and
Right.
use the right tools.
So in addition to the right tools and the right torques, they were suggesting that just a regular 1450 dryer type of receptacle on your wall that you would get at Home Depot was good enough. And those were the ones that were failing, as I recall. I know you mentioned Hubble earlier.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the brand name was on the ones that Home Depot, like the cheapest ones at Home Depot, but I'm sure it wasn't Hubble. So
Well-
you want to talk about that a little bit?
I think they said, don't go
What?
cheap.
Yeah, don't go cheap, right?
No, that is true, but it really comes down to the rating, because there's
Yeah.
different price points, and you can see this is a utility socket, which is the same setup as the NEMA 1450s that they're talking about. The metal is much better, the compression is all better, all like that, but it's not a lot of money to create what's going on here. So receptacles don't cost a lot. You get a lot more when you get into a Hubble, because you get a way to tighten it better. it's still a prong, it's still fins. Yeah, it's different. It's gonna be hard to see any of this stuff on the camera. It's best to, there's much better videos out than what I'm producing right now on the differences here. But the torque values for these receptacles, before this buzz came up, I have put in there. And I put in these now because I believe in these, and I upsized my wire as things have increased, and we've gone through this, but it's all about the torque values on that. And you will have failures from the manufacturer, even if it's free, just like there's recalls in every vehicle. That's, again, why I was so impressed with this, is this wasn't a Tesla fail. This was a human failure that created this arc. And the guy's car caught it, shut the unit down. There was, I couldn't even see where I thought it was perfectly good when I arrived. And that's really a mark of a great product, because you're gonna have failures. It just has to stay in the box. Like, this is a full-on meltdown of an electrical panel. So you can see where the busing arced out, everything failed. And this, again, is a pretty good experience of, it just shutting down, not getting anywhere. So, and that's kind of attributed to things being sealed and installed correctly too. That was, I believe, a stacking of the busing in an incorrect manner. You have a question, Ben?
Yeah, so with regard to condo home charging, we're at a point in the condo complex, literally across the street here on 6th Avenue in front of Balboa Park. And we want to do shared charging because sharing is caring. So we contracted a company that has an app to share chargers. Their name is EV Match. I mentioned them in a former meeting here. And we bought their network charger. So there's an open source standard for sharing your charger that is Wi-Fi based. And so you can actually download their app, and the HOA is going to pay a monthly fee, like $10 a plug or something, to essentially allow people to reserve the charging spot in gas parking. And that way you can share. You don't have to, if you don't have the capacity in the building to plumb everybody's.
You hear what he's talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, I see, again, I don't try to get in the way. If somebody knows, I would be happy to shake hands, but what was the name of the company again?
It's called EV Match.
Okay.
And so they have that solution, and it's pretty cool because you literally can reserve, like on your calendar, like reserve a time slot when you want to charge with multiple parties, and then you pay for the electricity via the app. The vendor cuts the HOA a check once a month for all the electricity consumed, and you can set as the management, you can set the price of the electricity, make a little profit if you want, or give it away at the same, give it away or sell it at cost. So that's not my question. My question is, I'm just giving the background. Question is, do you know anybody with City of San Diego permitting experience? Because we're kind of stuck. Apparently we need to get a planned permit because this is considered commercial, given it's a multi-unit well.
Yeah.
And we literally hired an electrician who doesn't seem to know much about that process.
No one does.
Yeah.
And I don't say that to be comical. I say that because this is really the book. And they did the changes in dark, and then they printed the they printed their logo in the center of the page in dark. There are obstacles out there that exist that are from these institutions. It's difficult to find. When I did her installation, it was the first time. The inspector was fantastic, but he even said it was the first time that he saw this magic box. And
in this case, it's actually not a magic box, it's a standard charger.
No, but people aren't open to a lot of new stuff. So when you try to find somebody who is an expert at this stuff, like we don't even have a universal charging point. It's new, everything's new. So it's gonna be hard to find somebody to get there. You will find somebody in the city. You wanna start with your planner, because if the planner doesn't know about it, they have to find out about it, because they're gonna be the ones that are at the front of, hey, does the utility have enough energy to support what you want to do?
Yeah, they do. So we've got a pretty new building, and the issue right now is chicken and an egg. So SDG&E won't give us a meter unless we have a permit. And we can't get a permit unless we have EV chargers installed. And so it's like, well, how do we?
You should be able to get an engineer, somebody should chirp up, they have load calculations that you can do, and you can.
It is not a matter of load because we've got plenty. So the chargers can do 48 amps a piece maximum, right? So two of them, only doing two. And so we can easily do it in a 125 amp circuit. So it's not even a big deal, right? The issue is, you know, the electrician will put in the conduit and what the appropriate gauge wiring and all that. So none of this is rocket science. It's all been done. It's like a home charger. The concern is, how do you get a meter from SDG&E for a commercial building? And
That
I
is
don't know.
SDG&E's right to have you go through their process. That is up to SDG&E. That is their planner. That is, hey, please answer this.
We can help. We can help.
Okay.
Listen, there's
Thank you.
two of us here from San Diego Community Power,
Okay.
SDG&E's competitor,
Yes.
but we play
I'd love to go with it.
we
don't
play
use
nice
it.
together.
We use it.
We're gonna have some events coming up
Okay.
very soon with people from SDG&E that you can talk to that are gonna get you through that obstacle.
Right.
Because this is the number one obstacle.
Oh, yeah.
This is the number one obstacle on everybody's agenda right now, is how do we hook up the multifamily buildings?
Yes.
And this is gonna be a huge tsunami of money coming out real soon to get this done, because up to now, and you guys have probably heard about the thing about solar, but a secondary issue is how do we provide charging to the masses for people who live in multifamily dwellings? The single family home has had a great run, and they're trying to pull that out from under us in regards to solar. But I'll tell you, there's going to be an avalanche of effort to create charging points capabilities for multifamily buildings and for a whole plethora of other types of installations. They're coming. It is not probably not coming today. It's coming. It's the number one issue. If we go to these forums, it's the number one issue every time. So
So what we need to do, just to wrap this up, is we need to kind of document the process. Anybody, we need to share the tribal knowledge amongst anybody who's had that experience. Number one, how do you get a meter to be able to, you know, energize the circuit? Because
Yeah, I'm assuming
an
that-
electrician can install chargers, no problem. That's not
Yeah.
rocket science. Meters, apparently SDG&E doesn't like to give them to condos unless you already have a permit. How do you get a permit? You go to sandiego.gov and there's a website where you can apply for one, but to apply for one, there's a huge process and there's a chicken and egg problem, right? You need a permit and the thing needs to be installed first. Well, how do you do that? Like literally step by step.
Pete will tell you, the way to interrupt the chicken and the egg conundrum is to find out what your service is at the building. Any electrician can tell you what kind of service you have.
208.
Yeah, once you know the service, you should be able to create a document, take it downtown and work your way through that maze with the city. By the way, you're gonna be buying power from us.
Yeah, we already are.
Yeah, San Diego Community Power,
Yes.
not the evil empire. But, you know, the EV Association, we play nice with them. We do a lot of stuff with them.
So they distribute it for you. So unfortunately,
Yeah.
I deal with them unless you can.
They own the grid, they own the superstructure, the infrastructure.
Yes.
They own the wires, they own the meters, they, you know, we have to do it their way. But if it was me that had a building with a number of tenants, I would bring in a guy like this who would write a document, maybe even have it notarized. And that would guarantee that building has that service, that capability of supporting the rated equipment. Am I right?
I believe that everyone's trying.
Yeah,
There is a E and a G in SDG&E. They're great people. I've seen the grid. I believe in them. They are union, I'm strong union. It's difficult to keep up the maintenance. it's not SDG&E that does the work. A lot of it's subcontracted, and a lot of it is not just human error, but it is manufacturer's error. There's a lot of product, when something happens, it's not just SDG&E. They can only move so fast as far as the gentleman in the corner. And we do have to support the structure that's there. I understand we are in the third year of pandemic. That was difficult to get a permit when you could walk into the city inspector with everything laid out, and it was just a matter of time. Now things have gone virtual. People, it was underfunded before, it's underfunded now, so it's difficult. It really is hard to get it if there wasn't a push, and there's a push now, as he mentioned. When the money comes, there's gonna be more staffing, there's gonna be more lanes, it's gonna happen. If you have a problem, I'd be happy to do a walkthrough with you and talk with you off camera to pinpoint more of the problem. But in a nutshell, if you're dealing with the utility, you have to deal with the utility, whether it's the electrician doing it for you or your drafts person or engineer or whatever, you're going to go through their process. And an insider admittedly said it was a maze.
Yes, so
Your contractor is not gonna push because he has to deal with them as for the rest of his career. So it's difficult for him to spearhead that towards a HOA and the utility. But the planner is the person that the utility provides you to navigate you through their process.
So San Diego.gov has a DSD department. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but they are the guys that essentially inspect your installation, and they do have a website on the process. And I attended the Zoom call last Friday that they provided to the public. It wasn't very clear, and unfortunately, they did not give that process of how you get a permit for a meter to be able to.
And they don't hand them out as a normal process because it'll be manipulated. They
should have, I mean, my opinion, if you want it done right, you provide a widget example, right? So you say, okay, this is how you do it. If you're interested, they talk about a fast track EV charger inspection, and they didn't explain what that meant. It might be in the document. I haven't actually read the document. Probably need to do that, but I've got a lot of things on my plate. I figured somebody here might know and could just kind of talk to the subject and maybe do a Cliff Notes version of it, but apparently that's not the case. So we'll have to read all of the documentation. It's pretty lengthy. The bottom line is a widget example for the rest of us, the Cliff Notes version on how you get a meter for your property if it's an HOA, and how you electrify that, and how you get that permit issued, or at least provisional, and how you get it inspected and all that fun stuff. How long it takes, approximately what documents you have to file, and give an example of a diagram, an example of the widget installation, so that folks can just copy it and put in their parameters, right? Their links, their.
You want a sub meter to the main meter, right?
Correct. Just actually an additional meter, because we want it independent, right? So the idea is to be able to, the HOA has what's called a house meter, an HM, right? And we want a DR2 meter, a secondary meter that is only spinning and tabulating anything used by the two chargers, or however many we have eventually. We're going to start with two. So that way, anything that's used on that second meter is going to be all EVs. And then we will know that anything that's being charged to us will be coming from that app vendor that's going to pay us that check. Everybody pays with their own credit card, and we'll charge their cars directly, and they can reserve the spaces whenever they need them. It sounds like the way to go. If you have everybody install an outlet, then you're going to need that level of capacity, and you're going to have to get a bigger transformer if you don't have enough capacity in the building for 60.
Plan. Then it comes to the SDG plan. That's where you propose the plan, and that's where they look at your individual use.
Don't need
And
that.
then-
Don't need any of that. This is the fast track way to do it. It's just literally assign 2 guest parking spots by the HOA with 2 standard chargers that you find in the garage, the highest amperage you can find, 48 amps. Put them on an app on Wi-Fi, and have everybody pay for their own power, and you're done. Walk away. You can like I reserve Tuesdays, you reserve Wednesdays. He's got Fridays, and the cars are charged overnight, and we're fat, done, and happy. If you know what I mean. And that's what we as a collective society need to be looking at in high density applications, and we're not, unfortunately.
Maybe you ought to ask your councilman to step in and.
They don't know, they have no idea. They're not.
They may
technical.
not know any idea, but you can make it be the squeaky wheel that'll tell them to go find somebody.
That's, well, again, why we're all here.
That's
We
what
have
you have to
all
do.
work together. Again, this is all new. This doesn't exist. If this existed, then it would be smoother to ramp. But as he spoke about this, the money that comes in, when that money comes in, then this will all be built. Right now, it's not built. And we're still, again, looking for a charging standard. A lot of the money hasn't been invested because there's no standard. So where do you put the money? Well, I'm not gonna put my money in a place if there's no standard yet, so it's coming, and that's all I can say is I'm here to make it happen today. I'm offering my time to you. I'm happy to talk to you off camera all day and night about your individual proposal or program or process. And you know, there's a whole bunch of different ways to take care of this because there are different solutions, and to ramp is great because there aren't, no one builds in 100% extra capacity. No one builds that in. That's an extra you get from the customer missing it. And then you come in and say, hey, I've been great for you for 20 years. Now we rebuild. That's part of how it is. No one builds a 200 amp electrical panel and puts in 400 amp wire just in case somebody wants to come down 20 years down the line. That doesn't happen, and no one ever did. That's where the dryer circuits have come in, and that's where we've gone to the problem where we've had the failed receptacles that have been used for 10 years, and somebody unplugs the dryer, plugs in their EV, and they're using it, you know, so much more now. So that's brought that problem along. Fire, the threat of fire, the code is what remedies this problem. When we have DIY and fire problems and these things popping up, that's when the money goes to $100 receptacle rather than $10 receptacle. And now people understand the difference in the money, and the factories get the money. It's gone in that direction. And you're watching the evolution of it. You know, right now, if it were a cell phones, we'd have a big bulky cell phone, you know, walking around in the 80s like we were cool. Like we're just not at the we're not at the smartphones yet.
Yeah. People will be able to answer the technical questions about the electrons, but the politics and the questions outside this room.
Nobody can answer
That's
that.
the money. That's where the money comes in.
Yeah, so you mentioned charger reliability. I know it's been sort of like in the news in terms of chargers being down. Is there a common thread in terms of like what do you see fail most often on chargers?
I would say, again, torque ratings go all about your tools and torque settings. And if you look at someone's torque, or you look at someone's tool bag, nowhere in time is there a torque wrench in a guy's bags. You just won't see it. It's a new, like these receptacles tight as tight. You have torque values on them, but I mean, I've done high-rise installs and you know, they strip out before after the torque rating. So, you know, if you strip it out, you've gone too far, you gotta throw it out, you learn your way and you tighten it down. It's nobody ever pulls out a torque wrench and
It's just
like.
currents are so high that you find high resistance.
These are the failure is the use of the use case, which is the continuous use. So for instance, I didn't bring number 10 wire, but you should upsize your wire. That helps. The terminals help. The torque rating is really what I think and is the big thing. Old equipment and not being properly sealed, so you get different weathers too fast. And how much the manufacturer cares if they have skin in the game. That's why I say get something with skin in the game. You know, the Charge America, whatever was created with out of Dieselgate, you know, they kind of dragged their ass to it. They didn't have to do it, you know, a lot of it was, you know, sub after sub after sub. And you lose a lot of the gumption. You know, if you give a contract to somebody who believes in it, wants in it, they damn well want to get it right. But if somebody who's going there for a paycheck, well then, hey man, you know, if we get this wrong, we get another day's pay. You know, if this material is broken, and this is truly a material, or, you know, it depends how contracts are made. And sometimes things aren't done correctly.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately where we are, but I've seen and lived the Tesla experience, and I gotta say, I use the Model S as a work vehicle. I do my installs from the vehicle, so I depend on the supercharging network. I really depend on it, and it's where I see the charging is gonna go and what people are gonna make the standard and how they're gonna create a company to build chargers and build a network. I mean, you'll have people build apps and power sharing and things like that, but the infrastructure and the permitting, pushing the money through, that's a whole, we talk about, that's a whole different thing. We have a great idea, but, you know, it's, you know, Amazon has tried to scale construction. Tesla's tried to scale construction. They both put people into space and they can't scale construction. It's difficult. There's a lot of things that go into it, you know? So,
For sure, the installation quality is gonna matter a lot. Maybe in a situation like, say you have a multifamily, and you have a bunch of chargers in the building. Like, what would you want to plan ahead for, you know, given that uptime of your chargers on ahead? Like, you're gonna want to have as many of them running as possible. Like,
excuse me, 100% uptime for every single spot. That's it. Period. Every spot you have is what the infrastructure is to do the charging for the vehicle. And then what? You don't have to go through this again.
You mean from the charger manufacturer to board?
No, from a building manufacturer. And then the charger comes after that. But like, for instance, if you needed to make this happen, you need to create charging for every parking spot 100% of the time in a residential area.
Yep.
Because that's just how it is. People have two cars, they have one spot. Well, then they can swap those cars and that's their problem.
So you
As
put
far
the
as-
trust into the building manager, because they're gonna.
No, that's gonna be the adoption of the curve. That's gonna be people just like him that got a vehicle, and they have people getting vehicles saying, hey, we can't live our best life because this isn't what we signed up for. Fix it. And we don't have the ability to fix that yet. And that's another force that's producing this money.
Yeah,
You
so,
know.
I mean, thinking about hypothetical, like if your HOA bought chargers for absolutely everyone, and you want to ensure high uptime, what sort of contract would you be looking for?
You
Yeah.
rebuild your electrical system because no electrical system in existence has that capability.
Sure.
Just because they don't build it that way.
Yeah, with the
You
chargers,
gotta- Yeah,
the
so you
chargers
would
filter, right?
install a separate electrical service that would serve your desired output of spots and your time, and, you know, if there's 20 spots, then you figure out what the rate, what the load calculation would be for those 20 spots, which your electrical system would be, then you talk to your planner, and then the service would have to deliver that to the pole. Then your guy would tap that into the HOA or into the service, but it would be a whole another electrical service, just probably equal to what's in the building. If I were to ballpark it for every structure, it would be double what your service is. Just for charging.
Or DCC9 per unit,
Huh?
or DCC9 per unit. Or per parking spot.
DCC9s, but again, in like we found in your union, there's a lot of space problems. There's the real estate problems. You don't have electrical buildings built. The electrical room doesn't have the capacity for those extra boxes because it was only built for the rated size. So it's actually manufactured for the building is only built so big because they would build the electrical really big because then that's square footage that they wasted on the building. So
Maybe we should explain what a DCC9 actually does. I don't.
it's a smart switch that basically keeps your power at 80%. If you charge your vehicle, it will use your utility power until you turn something on in your unit, and then that will take power from your vehicle and transfer it over to your unit. So you can look up VCC9. There are plug-in smart switches, like I think OmniVolt has one out now, and a few other ones that are really good. But in a nutshell, is there, do they have an app with that? They don't have an app yet? Not yet.
So basically, I have a 90 amp, 208 volt power supply for my unit, for my condo. And I need 40 amps if I want to charge the car, right? And so I cannot just say, well, now my unit only gets 50 amps because I have an oven, I have electric heating, I have all kinds of things. So in order to tap into my meter without having to have any power upgrade, we had to use this box to monitor the power usage. And when the power draw from the unit, from the condo is too big, it simply cuts the car's power usage. We did that, for example, last week, I tried to go baking something or doing cooking something, and I got a message from the car saying your charging has been interrupted because we were drawing too much power for the heater and the cooking that we did. And so once the usage in the unit, in the condo fell below that certain level, the car continued to charge and it eventually finished charging. Right? And so if you want to have your own charger and you have space for a box about this size somewhere, then that's a practical
It's about a
solution.
2x2 by 8-inch box, but it's a power sharing device. So if you can't get another meter and you need to find a different way to crack that nut, a power sharing device is the way to go. If you can't get another service, then you have to go to power sharing, or you have to utilize again any other part that that's here. But don't get discouraged. Be part of the solution that's here. This is again why I'm here, is because it is difficult. I don't know if I saw an electric vehicle coming up in here,
This is a
but there will be one.
We had a bunch of them here a couple months ago.
So,
I have a couple questions for you. Pete, you said you're getting a Cybertruck. Maybe we will, maybe we won't, right?
yeah, we will.
Are they going to have vehicle to grid capabilities?
That's what they say. That's where they're coming out of the closet with that little gem I've been waiting for years. And that was part of me ripping apart this thing, was to see if they had a backfeed device.
Yeah.
And that you can talk about the smart meters all day, and there would be a way that you could do a smart meter that separates your home. But anyway, I believe they will. And I think a lot of the problem is breaking off from the grid to backfeed the power. Because that's part of a code thing that you're not going to get power on the grid while the grid's on, because somebody's going to die, and that's not going to happen.
So you have to have a
That's just where we
gateway to
are.
go with it. wouldn't you?
Huh?
You'd have to have a gateway that when you cut that off.
You would just need something that realizes that power is coming in, so power can't go out, to allow the utility and grid to be on. But now the smart switches and the generator switches, it won't go on when one's on. It doesn't trust that switch enough human, that something isn't listed to do that. And I'll be damned if you'll find somebody that'll hop on the wire while it's being backfed that isn't getting paid $1 million, like that's just not part of the deal. So, but I believe they will, and I believe there'll be some things that they, like I said, they could have something in their proprietary home device that senses the grid and won't backfeed the home while the grid's on, or won't allow because they do it with solar. They have that, you can see it on your
Our solar
solar
panels
app.
have that. My solar panels.
Yeah, so it's not a mystery. It can happen. It's just a matter of everybody working in the process to get this through. You know, and it takes time to write the laws, it takes time to write the code, it takes time to produce the code and adopt it. Because guys like me have gone through school and they like to do one thing, and then all of a sudden it changes and.
So basically, right now, that doesn't exist. I know Nuvei is a local company that.
Well, Leaf does it.
Leaf
Leaf, I
does
believe your Leaf can backfeed your home.
backfeed your home.
They could do it 10 years ago.
Yeah.
They just wasn't allowed here.
Well, there was an announcement recently and I called the Nissan helpline. The company is Vermata. And they've been working on the East Coast, but it's more for commercial. And I talked with the local LA rep. And he said, we don't have one for the home yet, but we're working on it for next year. But for commercial purposes, they've been testing it for a couple of years in Colorado and East Coast. And for commercial purpose, but for home use, it's not there. It's in Japan, I think in Europe, but not in US yet.
The Ford Lightning has one that's approved.
Yeah, Ford Lightning's got one.
Yeah, and there, I believe that's the, I think that was the first one. I'm in the process of doing the Ford EcoBoost backup system, and it's a little bit more difficult. It's very GFCI sensitive. But great for Ford to spearhead it. You know, I have some of their stock. I believe it's gonna happen. You gotta, if we don't have everybody, it's not gonna happen. You know, you're gonna, whether it's the SDG&E, whether it's the people who run power off the grid, whether it's the people who are squeaky wheels to the HOAs, you're gonna have to have strict HOA people who call, you know, BS on a bad installation and say that, hey, we don't want this in our house because we don't think it's safe. You gotta have all of it and it's gonna work. You know, as the money comes through and as people figure out, you know, the product's better and you get butts and seats and people go through accidents and survive this thing that they can't believe they survived and will never buy another vehicle except that. I mean, that's all, they don't have, like Tesla doesn't advertise. So that's tough to get a lot of the positive things that other manufacturers are saying about EVs out. So I think their build quality is great. I think the Cybertruck is, the 1 megawatt is, I can't wrap my mind around all that yet. That's semi truck charging. I just, you know, things supposed to float. Like, I gotta see this thing. I just can't even believe it. Like, I didn't go to the LA show because I want to see it when it comes out. I don't want to be spoiled. So,
Any idea what voltage that one's operating on?
1,000
It's gotta be higher.
I
1,000.
1,000 volt architecture. Okay. Architecture. So
And
again,
you can see it in the Peterson Museum.
Yeah.
They have a Tesla exhibition right now.
which I think is a step up. You need a step up transformer. Utility, I believe, is like 6. I think residential is 600. So, you know, that's something that, you know, will be in their special sauce. They'll figure they've had more experience than anybody else at it. So
I'm gonna need a gateway then if I want to use that as auxiliary power for my house.
I would say that they may have a 4th generation wall connector. That may be their version of a gateway. That may be a nice little package. I'd be surprised if they came out with another separate box. You know, I think that they're trying to figure everything out into a package, you know, but I can't speak for them. Who knows? With their blueprint and how they want to do home energy, I would look into their home energy for that, because that's where you start tapping in the grid, the vehicle charging. A lot of that doesn't trickle down. So if you want the technical stuff, I'd look into the Tesla energy stuff, how they tie the mega packs and things like that into the grid. I mean, you just look at the wiring diagram for all that stuff. So it's basically going to be a scaled down version of what's going on there.
If the grid goes down, we're fixing it, and I can't have to be back there.
Yeah, and those mega packs and things, they take over like within a fraction of a second. You know, like there's some going on in Australia, there's a Moss Landing thing that's taken off really well, and it shows the technology is there, but it's not It's there for certain people to install and the utility to look at. I don't believe they have the people to oversight people like me installing that capability yet. Because then they would need planners and everybody else on the ground who's really hip to all this. And we're really new to all that. When a Cybertruck comes out, that's really gonna put a lot of pressure on these forces that we've been talking about, because people with means are gonna, but that's America. We have money, we want this, let's go. And that's gonna push that through. And I'm excited to see what that is gonna be like.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I
Anybody
wonder
else?
if we
got
have any questions out there on the Zoom call lately? Do you see anybody with a hand up that may want to ask a question out there?
Elaine went to sleep.
I'm sorry.
Did we lose Zoom?
Don't think so.
So Pete, this is, sorry.
Yeah, somebody behind you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I walked in just a little bit late, but my home was built in 76, 77. And I have electric stove and I have electric dryer outlet. So in my naive thinking, I was thinking if I ever got an EV, I'd get myself like a big 220 volt extension cable and maybe hook it up. But what I'm hearing is, I believe picked up is the wiring that was put in 40, 50 years ago, even if it wasn't for sustained use for 8 or 10 hours, and then with time degradation over the plug and the connections and that type of stuff, you shouldn't plan on trusting the wiring that's there. That's my question.
Every case is different.
Yeah.
A lot of older material is better. Like it's stronger if it hasn't been used. When I reuse something that's been plugged in, without freshening up and checking the torque specs and all that, that's what is the difference. Not that the item is bad, the metal's not gonna be bad. It's if the connections have failed over time, or if the wire with the thermal expansion and contraction has loosened the torque settings. The material itself, the sheathing may fail over time if it's, like the horsehair wiring, they only have certain life expectancy as far as the useful life of the sheathing, depending on what it is, but usually if it's a pipe, or you're in the 50-year range, you should be good, but you always want to check your torque settings, and I would freshen up the receptacle. Another idea is if you use that, don't use an extension cord. There's a thing called the Shore power cord for yachts.
Yeah.
It's kind of a different rating.
That's
It's
all
all about your,
It's a heavy duty
it's
extension.
about your rate. It's not an extension cord.
Okay.
It don't, yeah,
Don't
and
use
that's
that
where
term.
the confusion happens. Don't mention them in the same sentence. They're not the same. It's not the same. That's why
Okay.
the code is different. It's an extension of a power source. It's different. It's a temporary thing, but extension cords are rated for like 4-hour use.
Okay.
That's a different rating. It's a heavier duty rated. And they are, if everything's rated, everything is safe. But that's the thing, you have to make sure you read this absolute tiny print and they don't make it easy to read. So always, like, if you need somebody to look at your stuff, we can look at your stuff. And they also have smart plugs that can go into those. So you can, once you know that it's safe, you don't manually have to keep doing this plug and unplug, and that's how people say, oh, this thing wears down. Well, you can just put a smart plug in there, plug both in, and you don't have that wear. You don't have to reach over the washer and dryer. So there are solutions that get rid of some of the FUD that's out there. But you have to stay on this stuff. We're still new. It's continuous use at 50, 60 amps hasn't existed really in residential use yet. We've basically got to stoves at 50. Some people weld, but you're not welding for 8 hours continuous use in a residential area. So It's coming. You're at the beginning of the curve. You're asking the questions that, are gonna be done in a thumbnail app. That's gonna happen. That's why we're here trying to figure this out. And that's all I can really say is understand that, that people who really want to do it and are in this field are really wanting to do it. And sometimes it's hard to get up and do that because of all the, no, I wouldn't say FUD, but we're still in a meltdown. We're still 3 years in the, whether you call it a pandemic or not, it's not life as normal, and we can't get material as normal, and we have more demand. So it is pretty difficult, so it will get better. We'll find the answers and they'll be put in the book. And
I think there's another aspect of this. Many people, when they start getting electric cars, they think, oh, I need to charge really fast at home. I need to have as many amps as possible, so that I can charge fast. But the car is sitting there overnight. It's sitting there for probably about 8 hours or so. And nobody really needs 70 amps unless they just come home and they need to kind of leave in like 3-4 hours with a full charge again. So in most cases, if you have 30-40 amps available, that's probably enough to recharge the car overnight. So
everybody's use case is different.
yeah, I know, but it's something that I noticed in a lot of discussions that people think like, oh yeah, we need to have 150 kilowatts at home.
That's America. People want things fast. They want it fast.
Right?
They want it the fastest you can have.
Yeah,
it. That's
Yeah,
why
on the
I
road
want it.
you do, on the road you,
Exactly.
yeah,
But they want it at home.
but
too.
this is apples and oranges, it's DC and AC.
I know.
I see home application as completely different than charging on the road. When you're on the road, man, you wanna be able to put enough juice in there to keep you going.
Totally.
And at home,
But that comes
you wanna
Two-
get
two
that
different solutions.
off-peak, easy charging, and besides, your car battery is gonna be a lot happier if you gently charge it and gently discharge it. Of course, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah.
We're gonna mash the pedal. Wanna keep
Everybody's
up.
battery's different, and the charging,
Yeah.
there's two ways of the supercharging is if you, like, for instance, today, I have to charge on my way home. Am I gonna charge to 80%? No. I'm gonna charge to what the car tells me I can leave and continue my trip, which is usually 10 minutes. So I'll pull in, I'll sip it, and I'll go home. Now, if I'm on a road trip, it'd be different if I was leaving from here, because then I would charge to 80% and I'd jump to another supercharger station. But that is a day of driving. You do 2 superchargers in like a day of driving.
Right.
So, and you're gonna need to get up and you're gonna need to walk around, because that's just, really the way it is. They got them in pretty good locations, so.
But if you get enough just to get you home,
Yeah.
then you can charge it up for free at that slow pace overnight.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's free, but you're right, it's
Well,
not.
if you got
much,
solar.
but It's more convenient to charge quicker on the road and
Yeah.
charge longer at home than get a full charge at the superstation or supercharger and then go home with and have 70% when you pull in the driveway, rather than pull in with 20% and then charge overnight
Yeah.
and only spend 5-10 minutes at the charge. That's something people don't talk about because it's not really out there, but you don't have to charge to 80%. You have to charge to where your destination is, which is usually like, oh crap, I was low on gas today. Like I gotta put $5 in just to get me to when I get money. And that's really, it's not, I haven't found it to be a big problem, but I don't know. Other people have different experiences. My experience is from, Southern LA to San Isidro and probably out to, like El Cajon, Alpine, all the way up. So that's like where I usually do my routes and where my experience is.
I think I should have stated the reason why I brought this up. If you don't mind, sorry.
No,
The
go ahead.
reason why I brought this up is because if you have a, charger that draws up to 40 amp, you can use a NEMA 1450, like this receptacle that you showed here earlier, which is what I opted for both in both my properties. And the reason why I like that is, first of all, 40 amps is plenty fast for charging, gives me about almost 30 miles per hour in terms of charging speed. But if I want to swap my charger, like if anything goes wrong with the charger and I need to swap it, it's very easy. I can unplug it and plug another one in, and I'm independent from having to call an electrician, wait until he comes and kind of hardwires another charger.
That is a benefit.
Right?
to
And
having a
so,
plug.
yeah, exactly. And so for me, I
But
think,
is the failure point in the charger, or is it gonna be in the plug?
well,
That's kind of,
yeah, of course, there could always be other
Yeah.
situations. But the point here is 40 amps is plenty fast. It gives you this option of plugging in whatever you want. And it keeps you a little bit more independent. So that's something
it
to think
is,
about.
and you can bring it with you, and
Yeah.
it's just another tool to have, and that's why there's a thing called a tool bag, and why we're stumbling through this process, and nobody, that we're getting there, that there aren't solutions right now. And that's why there's an automotive museum, because there's, you can see where it started, like we're getting there. Do we have anybody on,
So, I don't know if you guys have realized this, but on a Tesla and on several other vendors, you can dial down the amperage when you're charging at level 2, right? You don't have to charge at 48 amps. Some cars take 48 amps, you can dial it down to 20. And if you want to use your air conditioner and your range and your electric dryer, dial it down to 10. And you can continue to trickle charge
Now-
while you're doing all that other stuff. And then when you're done, fire it back up.
to that point, you're absolutely correct, but the code and the inspector won't allow you to do that in the load calculation.
You still haven't told me how to get a permit, so if I
I
get
can't.
a permit, I'll believe you, right?
I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy.
You know?
That's something that they,
You must have experience, right? Because you're an electrician and you've had to have your work inspected and permitted, right? So how long does that take? That's what I want to hear. That's why I'm here, to be honest. The rest of it, I mean, it's relatively trivial. It's not rocket science. You literally do a calculation on the AWG for the wire thickness, and you put it in conduit, and you look at the book that tells you how much you can stick in the what diameter of conduit, and run a circuit breaker that's the right capacity, and that's it. It's not really hard at all. And of course, you get a licensed C10 to do that for you. Fantastic. The question is, how do you get the damn meter and how do you get the permit? Because that's where we're at, and apparently no one knows, and everybody has all kinds of.
Somebody mentioned, get a hold of your council person.
You don't need that.
Yes, you do.
something
Yes,
else
you
to
do. No,
do
this is early, the very earliest of stages we are at right now.
That's not true. I've had my car since 2018. So
Well,
it's
but
2023 almost.
there's a process that's gonna have to take place, and you're gonna have to get the right person. I don't know who it is in San Diego, but
I'll
that's
let
the
everybody know.
guy that I
will
would, the
share what I
person
have.
that I would talk to first would be my council person. Yeah, because this is something that everybody wants. You're not talking about something that is like, there's no political opposition to this. There's a little bit of foot dragging on the part of the monopoly. That's natural, that's built in. But what you're talking about is something that everybody wants right now. And the next thing that's coming
which
is,
is their person is the planner.
yeah,
That's your
Planning department.
SDG&E connection. The customer connection to SDG&E starts with the planner. That's where you have to figure out what you get into the building, and then if you have, it steers from there. If you need a service upgrade, then it goes to construction. If
right.
you don't need anything, then you go forward.
Yeah, the other thing is, if you're not getting something in SDG&E is the bottleneck, contact the Public Utilities Commission.
Yeah.
I've done that in the past and got the Cox cable straightened out.
Because it's a company, and it's a company, and there are many people who work in a company. You may not have the right person, then you'll find the right person.
Any questions on Zoom? I'm not seeing any questions there, but just want to make sure.
Yeah, anybody here have any questions that they want to ask? Timo did ask, do we have cliff notes on how to expedite condo EV charging station permitting and inspections?
That's basically what we've been just discussing.
But that's all about your harassing your planner. Guys like me, we have it all here. You can come to someone's home and you can set up a plan, but then who do you present that plan to and who takes that plan to the utility? That your representative should be the SDG planner or the planner for your utility. Because then they set up the load calculations for the transmission lines. So if it's low, if it's high, if it's rated, if it's not, that's kind of where you want to start.
All right. I think that's all we have for questions here. So
Okay, we see another one over there in the corner.
So what was the answer? What was the answer? We didn't hear her answer.
Basically the same as question to him, go towards the SDG plan. Seems like a hot topic is trying to get the permit and the metering through. And that's I can see it on you. I mean, I've fought this fight, I know. And that's how I know that it's so difficult to be put in this position as the customer's pushing you into this and you're like, I have to work with these people for 30 years and these avenues don't really exist.
He
So
doesn't want to burn a bridge.
I want everyone to succeed. I'm here, I have a long day, I have a long day home. I really, it's a whole, we're changing this into this. It's not gonna happen easily. There's a lot of human error. I've worked with a lot of people who do this type of work and we have a lot of human error.
I'll
So
tell you
don't think
what I
that-
do know, just to share legitimate information that I've already found, right? So you do, if anybody installs a charger anywhere in the city of San Diego, governed by San Diego 92101, 103, et cetera, the central city where we are now, you need to have a permit for your charger. That's both the city's requirement. And the San Diego.gov website has a DSD department it has permitting on their website, and you can follow that process. But the reason I mentioned that is I figured somebody had already gone through that process, but apparently not in this room. That's okay. I've done it before. In 2018, actually 2017, I plumbed my own charger and my Tesla Powerwall charger that we demonstrated. And, it was great. I had an electrician help me. I did conduit. We bent the conduit, and what we did is we put in a bigger breaker for the main service, and then we added one for the condo and one for the car so that we had more capacity and we didn't have to use a splitter box. And that worked out great for a couple of years. I moved into a nicer condo right across the street. They're very nice. They don't have electric vehicle charging in them. And I thought, well, I don't want to be selfish and do my own spot. I want to do it for everybody. That way, if I move, the chargers can stay there and people will share them, and you'll be able to have more charging infrastructure that everyone can use, not just one person, and not one person has to pay the brunt of the expense. So that's the bottom line. So I'm going to find out from the city, and I'll tell Elaine what I find in terms of how I do it. And
Do understand that the city is not SDG&E and SDG&E is not the city.
I am absolutely
Okay, because they're two very different
I
experiences.
got my, so from the HOA account, which I am on the
Yeah,
board,
yeah.
I got the meter, the planner looked at our application, assigned me an account for the new meter, et cetera, and then said, I can't actually put a meter in the socket that's already ready to go until you have a permit from the city. And that's where I left off. I'm like, okay, this is getting over my
Okay,
head.
now then you talk to your planner at
Yes.
SDG&E and you
Correct.
have your APN number. Now you
Yes, I
have to
do.
go to your city. And then that's your bottleneck.
Yes.
It's your city now.
And I have to present a diagram, right, which I've never done before. I know how to use Visio, I know how to use AutoCAD. I just don't know what the hell I want, but it's probably in that guide. And I guess I'll do it myself, right?
That's, you would have to, it's not the SDG planner, it's the city that you want to talk to, which is a different situation, and they have different rules, and most likely they're gonna ask you for a draftsman or somebody to draw and calculate all this stuff, because it's a different level of what's going on here. And that's just, again, where we are in real life.
Yeah, I called the construction prevention agency
Yeah.
Good one. No, it's true.
It's the birth control model, right?
And not the.
All right. I think we need to wrap this up and let you guys kind of continue with questions there if you like.
We'll take it offline.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining our meeting tonight. Good to see everybody.
Bye, Elaine.
Bye.
Thank you, Elaine. Good night.